everyone, it's Margaret Manning here, and welcome to 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. Now, my guest today is Jane Archer. Jane is an award-winning travel writer. She's a cruise journalist, and she spends most of her life on ships cruising around the world. I'm very happy to have her here today because I know a lot of our women in 60 and Me love to cruise. So Jane, are you ready for some questions?
I certainly am. Thank you for having me along.
I love having you here, and I'm specifically happy for this particular talk because I know nothing about this part of the world. We're going to talk about the Baltic and Norway, and there's a lot of cruises that are going on up there these days. And I know you've probably got far more experience than I do. So tell us more about that area of the world.
Wow, gosh, where shall I start?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what countries would it include? I mean, what are we talking?
The interesting thing is that the Baltic and Norway tend to be lumped together as one thing, but actually they are chalk and cheese. So if you do a cruise in the Baltic, you are doing a cruise through history and culture and big cities. If you do Norway, really you're doing scenery. You're going to the fjords, you're going to the majestic peaks. So that they are two very, very different things altogether. And then you can add to Norway, you can also then go a bit further up and you can go to Iceland, which again is very much about scenery and adventure. Right. And you can go up again to Greenland. Again, you're talking very much more of an adventurous side. So all of these things tend to be lumped together as Northern Europe, but they are all very, very different.
It's interesting you said that, actually. I'm really glad that you made that distinction because when you go on a cruise line website, you're right. You go to Northern Europe, that's what they call it, or they sometimes do call it the Baltic, and they include Norway and the Norwegian cruises under Baltic. I guess they can't list them all separately, but
it is confusing. As I say, but they are chalk and cheese. So, I mean, if we let's go for the Baltic as a starting point. Yes. I mean, if you do a cruise around the Baltic, the places you are likely to go to, very, very likely to go to, are Stockholm, which is in Sweden, obviously. You're going to go to Helsinki, which is in Finland. Yeah. You're going to go to Tallinn, which is in Estonia. You are likely to go to Warnemünde, which is a little port in Germany, but it's the gateway to go to Berlin. It's quite a hike to get to Berlin, but you can do an excursion to Berlin from there. Okay. And then chances are you might also do Oslo, which is in Norway. All of these, major capital cities. And then you've got the icing on the cake, as far as I'm concerned, the jewel in the crown, call it what you like, most fabulous city. You've got St. Petersburg, which is so wonderful. But practically every cruise line that goes there stays at least 2 days, and some do 3 days because there is just so much to see. It is a magnificent city, absolutely wonderful. I love it. I've been there many, many times, and I get bowled over by it every time I go. Just the history, the culture, the magnitude of the place. It is absolutely enormous. Everything is on a grand scale, and so that is your Baltic cruise, if you like. Then let's go over to Norway, and the chances are you may well start your cruise in, beg your pardon, how could I forget, the Baltic. Of course, you've got Copenhagen as well, which is Denmark.
Yes.
So you've got, that's yet another capital city. So Copenhagen is likely to be your starting point for a cruise to Norway, to the Norwegian fjords. That's going to be your big city. You may well call it Bergen, which is a small city. But then you're going to be going into fjords, into the Geiranger Fjord and the Hardanger Fjord, and you go to Tromsø, which is a big city, but it's a big city in Norwegian terms as opposed to the big cities that we know and love. And so it is a completely different experience. And on the way, you are looking at the scenery, you're admiring the fjords, the deep fjords, the snow-capped peaks, maybe seeing up close to glaciers. as I say, it's a completely different experience.
So so it sounds like Copenhagen is kind of the stepping off point for both. So you either go one way up to Norway through the fjords and have that more dramatic nature experience, or you would go the other way to Stockholm and Oslo, and then to the beautiful culture and arts of St. Petersburg.
Absolutely,
and I've been there once too, and I agree with you. It's one of the most majestic cities in the world. The colors, the river that goes through St. Petersburg too is just amazing. It's a beautiful place.
It's just the grandeur of it, that the size of the buildings, the palaces. It's as I say, I just find it breathtaking every time I go there.
Do the cruises go down to Moscow from there often, or do you have an option?
No.
There's a fast train you can take if you
You can get the train, and some cruise lines, they do have a day excursion to Moscow, and I mean it is a long old day to go there. And you don't have a huge amount of time in Moscow, unfortunately. It is a bit of a whiz around Moscow. The other way to do that, of course, is to do a river cruise. So you can do a river cruise between Moscow and St. Petersburg.
Can you? I didn't know that.
And they have, well, it's a river cruise, but basically what you're doing is you're sailing on a canal and then a river, and then you'll be going across lakes. So it's like a patchwork of waterways, if you like, that take you between the two cities.
Okay.
Practically every itinerary has at least 2 nights, maybe 3 nights in Moscow at one end, and the same in St. Petersburg at the other. So you have plenty of time to see the big cities either end of it, and then you get to cruise through the heart of Russia between the two of them.
See those little houses on the river. They're gorgeous.
Oh, it's fantastic. You do see a lot of trees. I would warn you that you do need to like trees, because a lot of the landscape is trees. Yeah. But the cities that you visit are just fantastic. Uglitch, there's Yaroslavl. The history and the culture of these places is just phenomenal. And yeah, I mean, I just think it's fantastic. And if you go with a company like Viking, they have guides from Russia who travel with you, and you end up in, let's say you're in the red group. So at each place you have an excursion, you have the red group guide, and then during sailing time, those guides give talks either about the history of Russia. Right. They might do a couple of language lessons, and there's also something you might learn about the food that they have in Russia. Right. So it's a fantastic way to really, really immerse yourself in all things Russia. And this coming up this year is 100 years since the Bolshevik Revolution. So what better time is it to go?
Wow, that's really, I didn't know that, and I didn't know that Viking did that cruise between St. Petersburg and
yes, that's where Viking started 20 years ago.
Is that right? That's interesting. You know so much about cruises. How long have you been doing this, Jane? How long have you been a cruise journalist?
Well, I think I'm probably also celebrating my 20th anniversary.
No, you're not 100
going on this year. So yes, one way and another, sort of. It's probably been about 20 years.
What a life! All right, I think we've done the Baltic cruise. I mean, you've mentioned places that I'm fascinated in, like Estonia, for example. I've never been to Helsinki, so these are incredibly interesting places. They're
beautiful little places. The bit of Estonia, the bit of Tallinn that you would see, it's very, very small. The medieval centre is very small, but it's definitely worth going to see. And Helsinki is fabulous because it's so quirky. It's a really, it is Finnish. What can I say? It's fantastic. I mean, they've got this little market, the harbour market, and I mean that is so colourful, and these little stalls selling the most, sort of wonderful, quirky souvenirs. It's not like going into a souvenir shop in
London.
I love London or I love New York T-shirts or anything like that. I mean, it is all absolutely individual stuff. It's fantastic.
Cool. That's cool.
Costs a lot of money, mind you, but you're going to buy something quality.
That's very cool. Well, actually, we have some women in our community from Finland. We get conversations going sometimes, and it's really there is a uniqueness about that culture for sure.
Oh, absolutely,
it's the weather, I think.
Fantastic. It's fantastic. They're wonderful people, and they've just lived this fantastic life I just love the place. Yeah.
That's incredible. You've had so many experiences in your life. So let's go over to Norway and do, well, start with Copenhagen. I mean, I love Copenhagen. I've been there once myself, but you start in Copenhagen and take us up through a typical Norwegian cruise.
Well, most of them will take you up. It depends how long they are. So a 7-night cruise will probably take you to Bergen and Olden. You go up as far as that. Maybe you'd go into the Geiranger Fjord or somewhere like that. But you're not going to go very far, obviously, in 7 nights.
Will you go over to like Greenland, or I mean, are there ones that go across to like across the northern route, and I think there's some that go to Europe. I mean, just to England and to the Shetland Islands, and they go.
Oh yes, absolutely. But more to the point, going. Actually, for people who are living in the UK, you can cruise from the UK. You don't have to go to Copenhagen. You can cruise from the UK to the Norwegian fjords, and you can cruise from the UK. Up to Iceland, for instance, and you'd be going up to the Shetland Isles. You can go through the Orkneys, and some of them, if you go with Saga again, they have cruises only from the UK, and they will be going up to places like Greenland and to Spitsbergen, and you can do some amazing cruises from the UK. But then you are talking really of at least 2 weeks. And if you want to go a bit further and see a bit more, you really need to be talking of 2.5 weeks, I would say, to see more. If you're coming up from Copenhagen, if you're going to start your cruise up in Copenhagen, then yes, you'll be going up to Bergen, up to Stavanger, and going up through the fjords. And you can go right up to Kirkenes. You can go to the North Cape. Go and stand on the North Cape, which is the very, very top of Europe. You can't go any further than that if you're in Europe. That is it. That's the top of Europe. So it's fantastic. And I should also mention, whilst we're talking about the Norwegian coast and Norwegian fjords, another one to do with is a company called Hurtigruten, which is a Norwegian company, and they have ships going every single day from Bergen. They go from Bergen up to Kirkenes. One leaves from Bergen, the other one leaves from Kirkenes, so they will cross on the way down. And this is every single day of the year. Might not happen on Christmas Day. I'd have to check that. But they are stopping at something crazy like I don't know, 20 ports all the way, because it is
local.
It's a working ship, let's say. It's a working ship. So they are picking up cars and passengers at ports all the way up and down. But their ships go into some of the most remote fjords, and that's a fantastic experience. And they are built for seeing the coast. So they got an observation lounge up there, so you can sit and you can watch the coast as it's coming through, sort of some of the little narrow areas. So that's another. I mean, the options to do the Norwegian fjords are enormous, as I say. So from the UK, from Copenhagen, from Bergen, and with Hurtigruten you can do one way. Beg your pardon. You can do one way Bergen up to Kirkenes, or you can do Kirkenes down to Bergen, or you can do the whole round trip. So you do Bergen, Kirkenes, and then back down to Bergen.
Honestly, I don't know how you can remember all this. Your brain's like a computer. It's got, and Hurtigruten just sounds like such a cool company. I mean, I just want to look at their website, just look at Hurtigruten. It just sounds so happy.
They have fantastic cruises. They have some wonderful cruises, and they also all have cruises which go around Spitsbergen, which is right up in the Svalbard archipelago, again a part of Norway, but you're talking of snow, polar bears, ice, and a completely different experience to just going up and down the coast of Norway.
Would you see northern lights up there? Would you see the aurora?
Absolutely,
borealis?
Yes. Yes, and they have Norwegian Lights cruises, which are specifically there to get to see the Norwegian Northern Lights.
That's one of my goals. I'd love to see that.
And importantly, little plug for them, they also at the moment have an offer in place where if you don't actually see the Norwegian Lights, they will give you a free 7-night cruise.
Who's that?
All sorts of terms and conditions attached.
Or?
All sorts of terms and conditions attached. I must emphasise that. But that's definitely worth looking into if you want to see the Norwegian lights. Keep saying it. If you want to see the northern lights.
We knew what you meant. It's like your brain, honestly, must just get overwhelmed by city names and places. How many languages do you speak? Do you speak any languages?
I speak a little bit of French and I speak a little bit of German, and I can read Russian and say some very, very useless sentences that you get taught at school.
Which come into absolutely no use when you're trying to buy a ticket or trying to find your way to the toilets. Yeah.
Never.
This is great. Well, I think that the Baltic and the Norwegian cruises are really coming into popularity right now. Partly, I suppose, because they're new, they're different. I mean, many people have done other, Mediterranean cruises, and this is something completely different. Would you recommend it for older women? Do you think it'd be a good experience?
Absolutely. Yes, definitely, for sure. And in fact, traditionally, the Baltic has always been seen as a destination for older people. Actually, it's also great for families as well. If you get on the right ship, it's wonderful for families. I've taken my daughter there many times, and we've had a great time together. But yes, definitely suits older people for sure, particularly those who are interested in history and culture for the Baltic, and particularly those who are interested in scenery for the Norwegian fjords. Absolutely, definitely.
No, it's great. Well, we've done a couple of videos here, or 3 today, and I think the theme that's come through here, and I don't mean to keep differentiating with older women, because one thing that our community says is they love being around people of all ages. Like, so when we don't want to live in retirement homes, it's like, why would you want to do that? But I think what's really interesting is that you have painted a picture for us of cruising as a mature, fun, adventurous opportunity where you can learn about culture, history, you can play, but you're not really in that cruise with 4,000 people who are, eating tons of food, and that's the only primary goal, or playing on the slot machines. It's a cruise with a bit of class and culture and adventure.
Well, I think one of the important things is to get across is that there are an enormous amount of cruises out there, all kinds of different styles, different sizes to suit different people. The mantra is there is a cruise out there to suit everybody. And so you find the one that suits you. And yes, of course, there are cruises out there for families, and there are some fantastic cruises for families. And there are cruises out there for people who love to do nothing and just want to relax. And there are cruises there for people who want to see the world and discover new things and learn about history and culture. There's so much. And one of the big misconceptions everybody has is that every cruise is the same. And it really isn't. Just like there are big hotels. I mean, I'm not a great fan of big hotels where when you check in, they give you a map so you can find your room. I don't think that's very good at all. What I like is a lovely little boutique hotel where you just go up the stairs and you're room number 10 on the left-hand side. So just like there is a hotel for everybody, there is a cruise for everybody. And it's knowing what you want and finding the one that suits you. And that's it. Then you're hooked.
Anybody would think you loved cruising, Jane.
Do you think so?
Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. It's been wonderful, and I know the women in our community are going to love, learning from you and getting signed up on some of these great trips you've told us about. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it, Jane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our 60andMe YouTube channel and also visit our website. We are a strong and dynamic community of women over 60. We're challenging aging stereotypes, and every day we share fascinating stories, interesting questions, and great conversation.